Every great crime starts as a whisper, a quiet rumor that grows into a legend. This is one of those stories. It begins in Geneva, Switzerland, a city known for its calm beauty and peaceful nature. But this quiet city would become the backdrop for a crime so audacious, so brilliant, that it would change the world forever. Geneva is a city of wealth, luxury, and power. It's where the world's elite gather, and it's home to Cleef International, a bank built to be unbreakable. This wasn't just any bank. It was a vault for the world's most precious assets: gold, cash, diamonds, and priceless artifacts from kings and queens across the globe. Cleef was where the powerful trusted their most valuable items. The vault was considered impenetrable. Built with the most advanced technology of the time, it had biometric scanners, motion sensors, and guards trained to respond faster than any intruder could react. For decades, the bank's security had been flawless. No one ever thought it could be breached. No one except the 5 people who would later be known as the Shadows. On a moonless night in 2021, these 5 individuals pulled off what the world would later call the heist of the century. They stole $10 million in cash and assets in just 30 minutes, and they vanished without a trace. How did they do it? Who were they? And how did they escape the law? This is the story of how they got away with it. At the heart of this heist was Marcus Legrand. On the surface, Marcus seemed ordinary. He was a man in his early 40s, living a quiet life in Geneva. He worked as a cybersecurity consultant, sitting in front of computers, analyzing firewalls, attending meetings, and drinking coffee at the same cafe every day. But Marcus was anything but ordinary. Beneath the calm exterior, there was a mind that never stopped. While most people saw security systems as impenetrable, Marcus saw them as puzzles waiting to be solved. He understood how things worked, but more importantly, he understood how they could break. Marcus was a genius. He could find the smallest flaw in any system and exploit it. But it wasn't enough to just find these flaws. He wanted to challenge the system. He wanted to do what no one had ever done before: steal from the untouchable. One night, after another long day, Marcus stood on his balcony overlooking the glowing skyline of Geneva. The lights of the city twinkled like stars, and the dark waters of Lake Geneva stretched into the distance. That's when the thought hit him. What if the very systems designed to protect the rich and powerful could be turned against them? It was a thought that took root and wouldn't let go. Marcus spent months researching Cleef International. He studied its blueprints, read articles, and even posed as a client just to get a closer look at the layout. He gathered information in secret, knowing that he was on the verge of something big. But Marcus knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed a team of specialists, people just as brilliant as he was. Marcus didn't just need accomplices, he needed experts, people who could fill in the gaps and turn his idea into reality. The first person he reached out to was Eva Cortez. Eva was 36, and she had a reputation in the world of forgery. She could forge anything: documents, signatures, IDs. Nothing was beyond her skill. She had spent years perfecting her craft, but a string of bad decisions had left her financially ruined. She was living on the edge, with nothing to lose. When Marcus came to her with the plan, Eva saw it as more than just a job. She saw a chance for redemption. This heist could be her way out of the life she'd fallen into. She agreed, and just like that, she became part of the team. Next came Leo Martinez. Leo was the youngest member of the team, only 27, but his talent as a hacker was unmatched. Governments, corporations, banks, Leo had infiltrated them all. For Leo, hacking wasn't just a job, it was his identity. He didn't care about the money, but the challenge intrigued him. Annika Voss was the infiltrator. At 42, she had spent decades as a jewel thief. Her specialty was slipping past guards and bypassing alarms. She had always been a ghost, someone who could disappear into the shadows. But after a close call with the law, she retired to a quiet life in the Swiss Alps. Marcus reached out to her, promising one last job. It was a job that would set her up for life, and Annika couldn't resist. Lastly, there was Tommy Clark, a former demolitions expert turned security consultant. Tommy was 45, but his experience made him invaluable. He could create devices that left no trace, and his knowledge of security systems was second to none. When Marcus approached him, Tommy didn't hesitate. He was in. Together they became the Shadows, a team of specialists, each with their own skills but united by a single goal: to steal from the untouchable. The plan was as intricate as it was daring. Every detail was considered, every possible scenario mapped out. Marcus knew that to succeed, they had to be perfect. The first step was to identify the weakness in Van Cleef's security. Marcus spent weeks studying the bank's systems, looking for a flaw that others might have missed. It was then that he discovered the vulnerability: the power grid. The bank's vaults were connected to the city's power supply. When the main grid failed, the backup systems took over. But there was a 27-minute window between the two transitions. That window was their opportunity. The plan was divided into 3 phases. Phase 1: distraction. Tommy would cause a power outage, plunging the bank into darkness. This would force the bank to switch to its backup generators, creating the critical 27-minute window of vulnerability. Phase 2: infiltration. Disguised as emergency contractors, the team would enter the bank under the guise of fixing the outage. They would use forged credentials to gain access. Phase 3: extraction. Inside the vault, they would disable the final security measures, collect $10 million in cash and valuables, and escape before the power grid came back online. The team drilled endlessly. They practiced every movement, every interaction, every contingency. Marcus drilled them on one thing: precision isn't optional, it's survival. November 2021. It was a cold, rainy night. The shadows were long, and the city of Geneva was quiet, unaware of what was about to unfold. At exactly 1:59 a.m., Tommy triggered the blackout. The entire city block went dark. The faint hum of the city faded into silence. The shadows arrived at Van Cleef International in an unmarked van, dressed in uniforms marked with a fictitious utility company's logo. They pulled up to the gates, and Ava handed over forged work orders. The guards, already rattled by the outage, waved them through without question. Inside, Leo went to work. Using a custom-built device, he scrambled the surveillance cameras, looping footage of an empty hallway. The cameras no longer saw the team moving through the bank. Meanwhile, Annika and Tommy headed for the vault. The vault room was quiet, save for the hum of the machinery. Annika worked quickly, disabling the motion sensors. Tommy's EMP device neutralized the thermal cameras. Finally, Marcus entered the code he had spent months obtaining. The vault door creaked open. What they saw inside was breathtaking. Stacks of cash, glittering gold bars, and rows of velvet cases containing priceless gems. They didn't hesitate. They moved quickly, loading duffel bags with exactly $10 million in assets. Every moment was crucial. They didn't take a penny more or a penny less. At 2:26 a.m., they were done. The final challenge was the exit. Leo activated the fire alarm, forcing the guards to evacuate the building. Amid the chaos, the shadows slipped out unnoticed, vanishing into the rain-soaked streets of Geneva. The getaway was as carefully executed as the heist itself. The shadows knew that the clock was ticking, and the moment they left the bank, they would be at risk. But they were ready. They had anticipated every move the authorities could make. To avoid detection, they switched vehicles 3 times in quick succession, using stolen license plates and route diversions. Leo, the hacker, monitored the police scanners on his phone, making sure they stayed one step ahead of the authorities. His fingers flew over the screen, decoding every transmission. By the time the first police units reached the scene, the shadows were already miles away, having crossed through the winding streets of Geneva and into the French countryside. Their destination was a remote area where they had planned to lay low for a few days and let the dust settle. They reached the French border by dawn. The border guards were busy, tired from a long night shift, and the shadows had already covered their tracks. They passed through customs without raising any suspicion, their loot hidden in cleverly designed compartments in their vehicles. By the time the authorities realized what had happened, the shadows were long gone. The team scattered, each member vanishing into different corners of the world. Marcus went to a vineyard in Tuscany where he could blend in with the locals and sip wine under the sun. Ava moved to Barcelona, opening an art gallery where she would stay hidden among the world's elite. Leo disappeared into the underground tech scene in Tokyo, where his skills were valued by the city's most secretive players. Annika retreated to a remote cabin in the Swiss Alps, far from any eyes that might recognize her. Tommy bought a ranch in Argentina where he could live in peace, away from the dangers of his past life. The shadows had become ghosts, vanishing into thin air, but their legend was just beginning. The world had no idea who had pulled off the heist or where they were, but everyone was talking about it. Every news outlet was scrambling to get information. How did they do it? How did they get away with stealing from a bank so secure it seemed untouchable? But the shadows remained silent, leaving no trace of their existence. They had pulled off the perfect crime, or so it seemed. 3 days after the heist, the world was in chaos. Geneva was in turmoil. How could something so audacious happen in one of the world's safest cities? How could a group of criminals outsmart the most sophisticated security systems known to man? Cleef International, known for its secrecy, refused to comment on the theft. Inside sources revealed, however, that the bank had lost $10 million in cash and assets. It was a blow to the institution's reputation that would take years to recover from. Interpol launched an international manhunt, but despite their best efforts, the shadows had covered their tracks too well. There was no trail, no fingerprints, no DNA, no digital footprint. It was as though the 5 individuals had never existed. The authorities speculated, was it an inside job? Were the shadows former employees of the bank? Or were they just a group of brilliant criminals working together? But no one could say for sure. The team had disappeared, leaving the authorities with nothing but questions and frustration. In the meantime, the media frenzy only grew. Newspapers and television stations speculated endlessly about who the shadows were. Some believed that the team was a group of highly trained ex-soldiers. Others believed they were hackers from the darkest corners of the internet. Theories ranged from the plausible to the absurd, but no one knew the truth. The shadows had become legends, ghosts who could never be caught, and their heist was one for the history books. Meanwhile, the 5 members of the team continued to live their separate lives, unnoticed and undisturbed. They had succeeded, but their victory wasn't just about the $10 million. It was about the thrill, the challenge, and the satisfaction of outsmarting the world's most secure systems. 3 years later, a new twist emerged. A journalist named Clara Meyer published a book titled The Shadows of Van Cleef. In it, Clara detailed the heist with such accuracy that it shook the world. She described how Marcus Legrand had masterminded the operation, how each member of the team had played a crucial role, and how they had managed to disappear without leaving a trace. The book was a sensation. Everyone wanted to know more. Was Clara Meyer an insider? Had she been part of the team? Or had one of the shadows broken their silence and revealed their secrets? Marcus, now living in his Tuscan vineyard, denied any involvement. He claimed he had never met Clara and that the story was purely fictional. But the book's release reignited the world's fascination with the heist. People were obsessed. Was it true? Was it all just a carefully crafted story? The media attention returned. The world wanted answers. But still, the shadows refused to speak. Theories and speculations ran wild. Were they in hiding, enjoying the wealth they had stolen? Or had they truly vanished, their identities erased from history? Despite the book's success, the truth remained elusive. Clara Meyer's investigation was praised for its detail, but it also raised more questions than answers. To this day, no one knows the full story. Some believe Clara had a connection to one of the shadows, while others think she was simply a journalist who stumbled upon the world's most famous heist. The legend of the shadows lives on, and the $10 million they stole is still unaccounted for. The heist is considered the perfect crime, and the shadows, with their brilliance, their audacity, and their quiet disappearances, remain the stuff of legend. In the end, the heist of the century wasn't just about the money. It was about the audacity of the criminals who dared to challenge the untouchable. It was about the ingenuity of a team that could outsmart the most sophisticated security systems in the world. The shadows didn't just take money. They took the world's perception of security, of safety, and of invincibility. They made everyone question what was truly safe, what could be protected, and whether anyone was ever truly untouchable. Their legend lives on. No one knows where they are. No one knows what they are doing, and no one knows if they will ever be caught. But their story, the story of the heist of the century, will never fade. The shadows didn't just pull off a perfect crime, they became legends. And legends, as we all know, never fade.